Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of PF Unfiltered.
Even though to me, I feel like you always say the hello every time. Like,
Okay, can we let Sean do it, please?
Okay, Sean, you just let's see what we sound like. Let's see what we sound like. Let's see what we sound like.
Everybody, and welcome.
Okay,
to...
I think we'll stick with.
Wow.
I think we'll stick with.
It's the switch.
I'm not even mad.
It's the switch for me.
It's okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, ask us how we're doing.
I should see. I feel like you guys are already saying, "Okay, today you are going to say hello, everybody." Then you ask us how we're doing, which I will. But this time I want an answer because I feel like PF is going to just say it was fine, all is well. PF, in the last 24 hours, has there been anything significant that has occurred in your life that you would like to share with your PF Unfiltered family?
No.
Sean, please. Anything in your life?
I think Tunde has something he wants to share with us.
Yeah. Just tell us.
Okay, I actually do have something. I want to say how much I appreciate the both of you.
Oh my God.
You guys have honestly. Okay, maybe like I might be fluffing
The
it.
fact that you have to say honestly,
Fluffing
like,
it.
are you,
Once somebody says honestly,
it's like
he's not honest anymore.
Yeah, because
they're trying to prime you.
Yeah, I
to
guess
believe a lie.
right. I mean, I care. I appreciate the both of y'all.
Thank you.
But
We appreciate you too.
I didn't. This is impromptu. I'm
Clearly.
freestyling. Yeah. But I actually don't have anything significant that occurred. I'm alive. I'm well. I'm here. I'm grateful.
Some people
Amen
will not
to
consider that. Sorry.
Significant.
No. Go. Which people will not consider it? Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Forgive.
I
Apologize.
apologize.
All right, let's get to the meat of this. This episode is a little vulnerable for me, because I think I shared in the last episode that when I was a 5-year-old boy, young and hopeful, my father actually, when people are trying to be vulnerable, how do they do it? They have to look in the camera and be a little bit somber.
Then they'll
Their
put
music in the background,
music. Yeah, we'll put it over for you.
like Titanic type vibes. Okay, but seriously, my dad left when I was 5.
Left where?
Left home and never came back when I was young. And I've always had that. I've had the fear that it's not serious. That maybe if I grow up and when I have my own child, which I thank God I do now, that I might have certain characteristics that he had. Maybe might not be like leaving my kid, but not being a good parent, a good father, a good role model.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of children, or a lot of Nigerian children that are probably in my age range, should we?
Age yourself.
That's young, and agile. I feel like they might share the exact same sentiment. Obviously, not like their dad or whoever leaving them, but just this gap between my mom, my father, my parents, and me when I was growing up. And now I'm at an older age now.
Yeah.
As an adult, it might be manifesting itself in a not negative way, but not in the most healthy way. So I was going to ask you, how was your childhood like, and how do you think that has affected the man that you are today?
And the way you parent.
Okay, that's a really good question. I grew up with both my parents in the house. In my opinion, they had a solid marriage.
In your opinion?
In my opinion.
Okay.
They were married up until my mom passed away in 2012. So I had them as an example, right, of how to raise a child. I watched them raise me. I experienced them raising me, watched them raise my siblings. I'm the eldest of 4. I had a sister who passed away at some point. So I basically watched them raise, my siblings. And that really, in all truth, became the template, right, for how I was going to raise my own children. That was the natural template. The Bible says, train a child in the way that he should grow, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. One of the things that happens as we're being raised to be whoever it is we're supposed to be, we're also being raised to raise our children like that. We have a tendency as human beings to reproduce what we experienced or to reproduce what we have learned. I would say my parents were middle class, upper middle class. My father was a civil servant. My mother was a businesswoman, a trader. She also had a few, like 4 taxis. So we lived a relatively materially comfortable life, stable. We didn't really want for much in terms of food or shelter or clothing. Privileged in many ways.
So like ajebo. Can you even define
Ajebo
ajebo for
What is ajebo? What is that?
Ajebo is a term.
Ajebo what?
It's a term that's
Is
used.
that Swahili?
No, it's
Ajebo.
broken English, I believe. It's a term that's used to describe people that grew up in privilege.
I see.
Right.
Okay.
You guys are not familiar with that kind of term, I understand.
Yeah. Anyway, so I grew up quite comfortable, right? My parents were, the typical Nigerian parents. My mother was more traditional. My father, was a bit more liberal, a bit more progressive, so to speak, in his interactions with us. For example, my mother wanted us to prostrate, which is the typical Yoruba way of greeting an elder. When we greeted my dad in the morning, and my dad would not have it. My dad, if you even called him sir, he would tell you, don't call me sir. It was daddy or dad, but it was never, yes sir, no sir, My mom wanted my siblings to call me brother, because I was the eldest brother. My father was not having any of that. So a lot of the traditional things, my father kind of blocked it. But my parents were quite strict. I joke with folks that, when your dad is punishing you, which usually was a good round flogging, you would run to your mom and you will get refuge. In my house, my dad slaps you, you run to my mom, you get a slap on
Slaps
the
you back.
Yeah. You'd be like, they use you and play ping pong. Justice was swift.
Oh, damn.
But my old man was, he tried to be, they tried to be active in our lives. I remember in secondary school, high school, we had a school play, The Gods Are Not to Blame. And my father actually came and directed the play. So they were involved in that way. Now, fast forward my own children. I didn't see anything wrong with the way my parents raised me. So my tendency is to reproduce that. Yeah? But I had girls. And there's a softening that you have towards girls, right? So there was that softening from me to them in a way that I didn't get from my parents, right? I knew that we were raising children in a different environment from where we were raised. I was raised in Nigeria. My kids were raised in America. So I knew that I had to be affectionate. I was very affectionate with my girls, hugs, kisses, spending time with them, and all of that stuff.
I'm sorry, Piv, I didn't learn that from your parents.
First of all, I hope my old man is not watching this. Never heard I love you. Not once from any parent until I think I was already in my 20s, maybe, if my memory serves me correctly. Never got a hug. I remember the first time I shook hands with my father. It was a very proud moment for me. I felt like a man. He shook my hand and looked me in the eye, And that was it. That was the extent of the affection, right? But then you grow up, you're raising children in the West, and affection is a big deal here. Public displays of affection are a big deal. And the children expect it, right? You would be almost mean to deny them that. And so, we got into the public displays of affection, hugs, kisses, and all of that stuff. But as they grew older, now, my wife and I were raising them together. So my wife was trying to raise them the way she was raised. And we noticed that there were problems in the interaction between her and the girls that almost mirrored the problems in the interaction between her and her mom. So we had to switch it up and do things a little bit differently. The challenge many times is that when you see problems in that process, many of us will double down, right? And insist on what we knew, even though what we knew and how we were raised was problematic, right? One of the things that I have learned is that children need affection. Children need affirmation. Children need validation. our culture, my culture, was not big on validating affirmation and affection. So I grew up without a sense of esteem that comes from validation, affirmation, and affection when a child is young. Scientists will tell you that children need these things, validation, affirmation, affection, right, from their parents, and then from their peers, and then from their community, right? A lot of us were raised in a situation, we're raised in a way that was not big on validation, affirmation, and affection. Validation, affirmation, and even affection was given only when we did something that merited it. Like you got good grades.
Right.
Then you would get, some celebration, well done, right? But if you didn't get good grades, you would get nothing. Or you would get some kind of punishment, right? That affects us as we grow up. It affects us psychologically. It affects us emotionally as we get older in life. So as soon as I realized that I could not raise my children in exactly the same way that I was raised. There's some core values that my parents taught me. My mother was very big on generosity, very kind to strangers, helping people who needed help. They weren't mean people. They weren't nasty. They were good people. But one of the major components of raising a child is making sure that the child is not only physically, materially comfortable, right? You know, the Bible says, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers," right? The idea is that we are prospering physically, mentally, and spiritually. I believe that my parents focused heavily on my physical prosperity, to varying degrees, my spiritual prosperity, but didn't pay as much attention to the emotional, right? And the emotional is critical because the emotional is kind of like the foundation of your life, right? It is how you see yourself. It is how you interact with the world. It is how you interact. It determines how you interact in your relationships.
Right.
But our culture was more focused on achievement, right? Being a good doctor, being a great engineer, being a pharmacist, being a lawyer, being an accountant, right? That is where the emphasis was. And a lot of energy and resources were invested in making sure that we had good education, right? The best that the country could offer. A lot of energy and investment was put into making sure that we were polite and well-behaved members of the society. But emotionally, the resources were not enough.
I like that initially you had talked about how your wife and the way that she was raising, because I was actually going to ask that. So you talked about your perspective,
right.
But when you're raising kids with someone who was raised completely differently.
Yes.
And how do you then come together and make a decision, what path are we going to take? And I guess making compromises on, I know this is how you were raised and this is how I was raised, but how are we going to raise our kids? And I guess the dynamics of that and what happens usually in if there's ever any conflict in I think we should raise them this way, and you're like, no, I think we should raise them this way.
Okay, so the challenge is this, right? What is your goal, right? So you know how we talk about the vision. What is the vision for this child, right? What is the desired or expected end of this child? That will, in many ways, determine the methodology of how you raise the child. What is the relationship that you desire to have with the child? I don't think my parents gave a lot of thought to my relationship with them, right? I don't think they gave a lot of thought to my confidence level, right? I think they gave a lot of thought to my academic achievement. So they made sure they sent me to the best schools that they had access to, right? My wife and I, gave thought to the kind of relationship we wanted to have with our children. We didn't want them to just be obedient, right? We wanted them to grow up to also be our friends, right? We wanted them to like us. We didn't want them to be afraid of us, right? And the reason why we did a course correction was because we realized that the way that we were going, we were not going to achieve those goals, right? We wanted our children to be academically successful, absolutely. We wanted them to be polite members of the society, absolutely. But we also wanted them to be very confident, right? We wanted them to be able to stand in front of kings and not feel less than. Yeah? We wanted them to stand in front of their peers and not be defined by their material situation, because we know that these things go up and down, right? And so we had to look at what we were doing and what we were trying to achieve. And if what you're doing is not going to get you to where you want to go, then you need to change what you are doing, right? And for us, we realized very quickly that some of the things we were doing was not going to get us to where we wanted to go. Let me give you a classic example. My youngest daughter, Damisiri. Damisiri is the sweetest child you've ever met. She was a tyrant when she was little, because she that's another story. But she was very sweet, even as a child. When she did something wrong growing up, she picked up something and put it in her mouth, you take it from her, you'd be like, Dami, stop that, right? Kind of like the way we were raised, little part here, a little part there. And then one day, she goes to kindergarten and they give us a call. Principal calls us and says, come get your kid. She's been hitting some other kids. And I'm like, Damisiri would never hit anybody. She's an angel, right? And we get there and they say Damisiri was, giving kids little parts.
Like, don't do that.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're like, so where did she get that from? We had shown her that when you are upset with somebody, smack them, right? So we had to reevaluate and say, okay, how are we going to discipline this girl without teaching her?
Right.
Yes, because she had learned to associate bad behavior with a tap. Right. She had learned to associate anger with a tap. So if you annoy her, you get a tap. If you behave badly to her, you get a tap. So we realized that if you're going to tap her, you need to let her know why you're tapping her. You need to make sure that there is no exuberance of emotion. Otherwise, she would associate this with this, right? And we don't really think about things like that. We don't really think that our children are learning about how to do life, not just by the things that we say, but also by the things that they see, right? So we had to adjust what we were showing our children, right? Because of what we saw with Damisiri. And she quickly, stopped it, because nobody was tapping anybody again without a conversation as to why you're getting the tap, right? AK and our eldest daughter, Dara, had a difficult relationship. And we realized that that is not the relationship she wanted with her daughters, right? So we had to recalibrate, without undermining our other goals of academic success, of achieving, of confidence, right? I emphasize a lot those three things: validation, affection, and affirmation. I place a lot of emphasis on it because I realize that a lot of people who grew up in my generation are emotionally stunted or dysfunctional. Right? But we don't realize that because, we're making good money. We're doctors, we're engineers, we're lawyers,
And it seems like everyone was raised the same too.
Yes.
So
it was the same format.
It was normal.
Yeah, it was normal, right? But we think we're fine. But then look at our relationships, right? A lot of us are struggling in our relationships. We're just not vocal about it because we've learned to keep things inside. A lot of us are dysfunctional emotionally. A lot of us lack self-esteem. We have this faux confidence, right? That people, if you look behind it, you will realize that this is not confidence at all. This is a very low self-esteem. It's insecurity that drives a lot of the noise that we make.
That's true.
Right? And that insecurity comes from a child's not feeling valued, not feeling esteemed, not feeling validated by just being a child. One of the things that I found really amusing about America when we first got here was when the kids would go to school, they would come back with participation certificates. They'll say, the tidiest kid in the class, the biggest smile in the class. And it used to irritate me. Like, what's that? Who came first?
Yeah.
Who came second? Who got the prize in mathematics?
Which one is biggest smile?
What's biggest smile or perkiest, what's that? But I realized that there was wisdom in validating every child, right? Making them feel, it doesn't matter what you have achieved or not achieved. You are a person, and you are worthy of respect, and you are worthy of love, right? Which we don't get.
Right.
Which we didn't get.
Yeah.
We didn't get anything like that. Well, most of us didn't get anything like that. So we have to achieve. That is why you put a Nigerian anywhere in the world, he will rise to the top of his profession. Because without success, he is nothing. He's been taught that if I am not a doctor, I am nothing. So go to any medical school in America and check what percentage of the medical students are Nigerians. Go to any law school in America and check what percentage of the law students are in America. In fact, Nigerians are the, how do they say it? Are the highest achieving immigrant community in America. Now, can you imagine that? And there are only about, 800,000 Nigerians in America. Yeah? There are more Asians, there are more Hispanics. But the way that they raise us, if you don't do well in school, no, you are nothing. They will either ignore you or they will punish you. But nobody is going to give you a participation trophy. Nobody is going to celebrate your participation trophy.
Is that just because of is this one of those situations because of the way they were raised and the way their parents were raised? Because, I mean, they care for us. So why?
They love us.
They love
us dearly.
Dearly.
And you see it when somebody tries to mess with you.
Right, and they're like...
And then your mother takes her head tie off and ties it on her waist and says, what are you trying to do with my child? So the love is not in doubt. It's just that it is not shown. And love that is not shown is not felt.
But why do you think it's not shown?
It's the way they were raised. It's from generation to generation, right? And many of us are in danger of repeating that thing. Yeah, we're in danger of repeating a template that does not work in this generation. My kids came home from school one time, even before school, they would ask me why. Daddy, Dara, sit down. Eat your food sitting down. Why?
Because you want to eat.
Why? They would ask you so many whys. And those whys can be so frustrating. And the instinct is how, can you imagine asking, your parent tells you do something, you say why? Then they give you an answer, then you say why? I mean, you are dead. You are dead. Just die. Because they are going to kill you. Right? But these kids will ask you why. And they're not asking out of rudeness. They're asking out of curiosity.
Right.
So answer them or shut it down. And when you shut it down, guess what happens? They learn to be uncurious. Right? Because every time they ask why, they get into trouble. They stop asking why. And that is why in many of our societies, you see us accepting of a lot of things. We don't question anything. We have been trained not to be curious. We have been trained not to ask why. Yeah? And that inability to ask why, it dims a child's confidence, right? It makes a child feel insecure, makes a child sometimes feel anxious, yeah? Parenting utilized fear. The way we were raised. Fear was a major tool of parenting. If you are afraid of me, you will behave yourself. Fear has its place, but it can't be the primary tool. It can't be the primary vehicle of getting a child to do what a child needs to do, right? One of the things that we found out is that positive reinforcement is more effective than harsh punishment. There's a place for punishment, right? But it's a very narrow place. Because if we're not careful, you damage the child more than you help the child, right? I was talking about achievement and how everybody in Nigeria is a high achiever. And we celebrate that. But we don't ask ourselves at what cost. And that is why we have a country full of doctors and engineers and pharmacists and lawyers and dentists and architects. And the country is still a mess. It is still a mess. Why? Because the emotional foundation was never laid. One of the things that confidence breeds is contentment. People don't attach confidence to contentment, but confidence is critical for contentment. You cannot be content if you have no confidence, because you're always going to be trying to match up with everyone else and everything else. But when you have confidence in yourself, in the way that you think, in who you are, then it doesn't matter what anyone else has.
The next person.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when you are not content, you will steal the kind of money that your great-grandchildren cannot spend, and you will squander it before your great-grandchildren are born. Why? Because you lack confidence. You attach your value to material things. So you need more. You need more and more and more to feel any sense of value, any sense of dignity, any sense of self. And we don't realize it. That did not come from the sky. It came from the way we raise our kids.
So, PF, I guess what is repeating in my head is that what made you clock? In terms of, like, obviously you explained how your relationship with your parents, and how it was pretty much what ours was. It was strict, it was disciplinarian, it was XYZ.
Right.
But when it came to your kids, I know you said it was different. This is America or Nigeria, but there was still a lot of people that are in America, but they're still raising their kids with the foundations of what they were raised with. What made you, like, say, nah, I'm not gonna carry on this trauma? You know what I mean? Because I think this is important.
I get your point. I think for me, the driving force was I really wanted a good relationship with my children. I just loved them, and I'm not saying my parents didn't love me. I'm sure they loved me to bits. And by the way, I do have a good relationship with my mom before she passed, and my father now. You know, we're almost like friends now. But it doesn't mitigate the challenges the absence of that relationship created when we were. You know, one of the things that I hear a lot of parents say is that you're supposed to be a parent, not a friend, right? And I agree with that, yeah? But if your children have trouble and they can't come to you first, yeah, you have failed in whatever it is you're trying to do. If your child is in a bad situation and they can't pick up the phone, right, they would rather call some friend who doesn't have your knowledge, who doesn't have your resources, who doesn't have your experience to give them advice. There's something wrong with what you have done.
What do you tell the parent that sacrificed and did everything they could for their children, that was their concern, and they just can't understand how, after everything I've done for you, you cannot come and
come to me.
Obviously, like, I might not have been the nicest, but it's because I was hustling to make sure that you were provided for.
It is what it is. It's cause and effect, right? If you don't invest in a relationship, there will not be a relationship. The fact that you put a roof over my head, the fact that you pay my school fees, doesn't give us a relationship. You are my father, right? And you've told me over and over, this is your obligation. This is what fathers do. Are you doing it for me, or are you doing it because that's what fathers do? Right? What have you done for me?
Lately.
Right? Not lately, but that will communicate to me that you love me. I don't understand about rent. I don't understand about mortgages. I don't understand about school fees. I'm a child.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, food fell from the sky. I don't know these things. What I know is, are you touching me? Right? What I know is, are you hugging me? What I know is, are you talking to me softly? If every time you talk to me, you bark at me, you yell at me, right? If every interaction is dismissive or punitive, right? What relationship are you building?
If every convo is, my friend, what's wrong with you? Can you get out of here, please? Is that?
Say, my friend, will you be quiet?
Yeah.
If you get out.
Yeah.
What you then do is create fear.
Right.
You create fear, and fear does not foster relationships, right? I believe that as a parent, we have a responsibility to provide materially, but also spiritually and emotionally. We have the tools, right? We love them. If we didn't love them, it's a different story. We love these kids, but for some reason, we think it is not, we should not express that love, or we should only express that love through provision, right? In America, if you don't pay the bills, if as a parent, if you don't feed me, if you don't feed your children, you will go to jail, and they will take that child from you. So who are you doing it for? For all I know, you just don't want to go to jail.
So I want to go a little bit forward and back as well.
Let's go.
When I'm saying go forward, I'm now thinking of parents and like adult children and their parents now and fostering relationships. So like, let's say you're raised in a home where, typical Nigerian household where it's like, strict disciplinary and all of that. You're an adult now, you're raising kids and you're like, hey, I see where we don't really have a relationship, but I want to change this, but I'm still upset, or like there's still things that are like I haven't forgiven. Like, how would you then say, how do you navigate this?
I think that there has to be a conversation, right, with whoever it is, between the people in the relationship. But one of the things that I've come to realize is that those conversations are very difficult and many times very unfruitful. And the reason why they are unfruitful is that no parent thinks to themselves, this thing I am doing is bad, let me go ahead and do it. No parent is thinking, this thing I'm doing is wicked, let me go ahead and do it. Yeah. They did what they did with the best of intentions, because the society that they came from valued certain things more than other things, right? And relationships were easier in those days. Yeah, society worked on a very strict hierarchy. Yeah, the younger submitted to the elder, full stop. If the younger is submitting to the elder, that's a good person. Marriage is you've married the person, you submit to your husband, full stop. All these lovey-dovey, nice, happy family, white picket fence, a puppy, a golden retriever, mom and dad, hugs and kisses, all of that stuff was not necessary. So I don't think there's any parent that did evil intentionally, right? So when you come to a parent with that accusation, you did this, you did that, they're going to be like, what are you smoking? I paid your bills. I made sure you went to school. I did this for you. I did that for you. I did this for you. So that conversation has to be had, but from a place of humility, from a place of understanding, from a place of empathy. How were they raised? I mean, if you think about the fact that you're raising your kids the way that you were raised, why would you blame them, right, for raising you the way they were raised? Yeah? So it's a conversation, particularly when there are wounds, where there are hurts. I don't have any wounds with my parents. I don't have any hurts. So there was never a need for a conversation. I just needed to realize where the deficiencies were, right? And try as much as possible to repair. Yeah? And thank God, the more you come to know the love of God, the more you find validation, affirmation, and affection from God. And what you didn't get from people, God and the Holy Spirit supplies, right? So you need to have a conversation with them. You need to understand where they're coming from. But I also think that a lot of us approach those conversations thinking that those conversations will heal us.
Yeah.
Those conversations will not heal you.
You have an agenda going into those conversations.
Yeah, they won't heal you. They won't give you any closure. You probably might even get into an argument with the parent.
Yeah.
Right? It may even make things worse. But I feel like if you get healing, if you are healed, you're more able to approach those conversations in a way that is productive. If you approach it from the place of pain, and I get why we want to do that, but in my experience, 8 times out of 10, it doesn't go well, right? It turns into accusations and counter-accusations. There's lots of crying, and many times it creates a schism, even worse schism than existed before. I think one should look for healing and not wait for somebody. Don't put your healing in anybody's hands, right? By the way, I love our culture, right? I love the music. I love the food. I love the community.
What music do you love out of our culture?
Out of our culture.
What music do you love?
Any music.
What about food? What food do you love from our culture?
I love our rice. I love our stew.
Do you like our avocados?
Avocados is not our culture.
Oh, sorry. What vegetable from our culture do you like that is not cooked?
That is not cooked?
Yes.
What kind of vegetables do you eat that are not cooked?
Spinach. Carrots.
That's not from our culture. They brought all of those things from the West.
So what vegetables from our culture?
You want to ask me a question? Answer the question yourself. Now.
So we don't.
Wait, no, we have vegetables.
Why are we talking about? I thought we were talking about kids.
Sorry.
Are you hungry?
Kind of.
Today's hungry.
I'm hungry for love and affection.
You're hungry for love and affection.
Yes.
Okay, so Christ.
Ask the Lord. I was gonna say, ask the Lord.
No. Seriously though, Christ.
But I had obviously I don't disagree. When you were talking earlier and when Shimon asked the question, I was thinking, okay, just go along with this metaphor. Like, it's not even a metaphor. Adam and Eve, God was there,
right?
Was their parents.
Yeah.
And when I think about that relationship, however brief it was spoken in Genesis, I'm remembering things like taking a walk, or before they fell. You know, walking and strolling, like, it felt like it was friendly. At least again, my interpretation, right?
Yeah.
And we know God is just, but if God being the first parent, quote unquote, parented in that way, where it was an environment of like love, genuine, sincere love and affection, right? Then shouldn't that be, I mean, not to talk of Christ and his love for the church, shouldn't that be our
template?
Our template.
Yes, I agree. You know, but also bear in mind that discipline is part of love, right? If you love somebody, you correct them. Yeah. So this is not, I'm not saying not to discipline a child.
Right.
I'm not saying not to correct a child or rebuke a child, right? But I'm saying that we have to ask ourselves, how are the choices we're making in this child's life affecting the child beyond just the material and the spiritual? We take our children to church. Some of us make our children fast. Some of us, the children speak in tongues. And that's great. And I love that. But then if your child, right, cannot look another man in the eye, right? If your child, like I said earlier, has a problem and they cannot come to you, nobody loves them like you do. You love them viscerally. You always have their best interest at heart. Most of the time. Most of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can be selfish because we're human.
Right.
But in the ideal circumstance, you're the best equipped to help that child. But the child doesn't trust you. There's something wrong. There's something wrong.
So my other question, you know how I said I was going to go forward and back. So now my other question is more so for, I guess, parents who are parenting in this generation now with like, where there's like social media and like access to a lot of information and like just everything is everywhere. How do parents then not control, but like raise their children, like guiding them, like, hey, this is right, this is wrong, when it seems like they can just be like, I'm gonna Google it, don't worry, I'm not even gonna ask you, I'm just gonna go Google, and there's like a plethora of information available.
That is, it's a big problem. It's a big problem, but the good thing about it is this: society has not totally disengaged parents from that process, right? Parents still have some influence, right, in what their child consumes. Yeah, all the guys I know, their children have phones, but they control how much time the children can spend on the phone. They control how much time the child, in fact, the websites the children can visit. They control who the children can talk to. The conversations are open to the parents, right? So it's not like you are totally powerless, right? But all of the power that God gives you to steer your child's life, right, is to be a blessing to the child. If God's desire for us is that we be in good health, right, that we prosper as our soul prospers, then that has to be the desire of every parent for every child, right? It's not enough that this child is a successful doctor, right? But can this child actually have a relationship, right, with his spouse, or her spouse? Can this child have a relationship with other people that is not dysfunctional, right, that is not problematic, right, that is actually genuine? I always joke that a lot of people from my part of the world, we like the big designer belts. I used to wear them as well, because we like to show off our achievements with the big, designer logos and all of that, because that is where our value is. Our value is in material things, right? So we need to flaunt the material things to declare that I have value. I have value. So guess what? I've got this car. I've got this house. I wear these clothes. Look at my belt. I have value. But there are people who will stand in front of the president, and they are wearing clothes that they bought in a thrift store, and they will question him without any fear, right? Because they have learned that their value does not come from their title, their position, or their material things. Yeah. We should be striving to raise children who can achieve great doctors, great engineers, but also have a sense of value intrinsic to themselves, irrespective of their material status, right? Irrespective of their socio-economic status. I love America for that reason. Yeah, there are people who earn $30,000 in America and they feel so good. They're very happy with themselves. Every summer they get in their RV, they go to Yosemite National Park with their family, they do road trips, and they're very happy. They shop at Walmart and thrift stores, they're very happy. How many Nigerians do you know will be earning $30,000 and won't be every night crying, God, why me?
I mean, that's fact. I don't know any Nigerian. I'm sure they exist. I just don't know anyone.
Do you know why? Because with $30,000 and somebody from your village earning $150,000, when the $150,000 man talks, you better not open your mouth.
Yes, sir.
You better not open your mouth. Who are you? You are nothing.
Yeah.
Even if the man doesn't say you are nothing, you yourself, you feel you are nothing.
Yeah.
Because you've been taught. Yeah. He's a better human being than you. He's more valuable than you because he has more money than you. You've been taught it. That is why all of us, we pursue material wealth like we pursue oxygen. It's an existential thing for us. We need it to be human in a way that it baffles people. It baffles me.
Yeah, we need it to be validated.
We need it to be validated. We need it to be respected. We need it for... It's like oxygen.
Yeah.
Without it, you are nothing. Right? And that is why there is no amount of money that is enough. There is no amount of money that is enough. If you have the opportunity, you will get more. Because value is something that if you don't have, you will keep chasing and you will never find. You want more. You want more. There will always be somebody that has $1 million more. Somebody that has one more private jet than you. Are you going to accept that that person is a better human being than you? And you have the opportunity to catch up with the person or overtake the person? Or you're going to take that opportunity, even if it means stealing. Particularly when society doesn't care where the money comes from. All they care about is that you have the money. And if you have the money, you have value. And you are telling me not to steal. I have to steal because that is where value is.
Yeah, the parent-child dynamic for me, and Jay and I were talking, as we always do before we record these things, and the parent-child dynamic for me has always been something that is very sensitive. Like, I don't know what the right way is, especially being a young father.
Very relative.
Can I say something? Let me interrupt you there.
Yeah.
The fact that you know that there's a problem and you're conscious of the dynamic, right? You are at least 40% of the way to solving the problem. If you don't know there's a problem, you can never solve the problem, right? But when you know that there's a challenge here, yeah, you are halfway to solving the problem, some people will say. What I will encourage you is this. Have a goal for your child. Have a vision for your child. Have a vision for the kind of relationship you want to have with your child. Have a vision for the kind of child you want your child to be, or the kind of adult you want your child to be. And invest resources accordingly. Invest your time accordingly. Invest your input into that child's life accordingly. The challenge for us is we have no vision for these children. We're just raising them to be good children. What is a good child? Right? Or we want them to be successful. Okay. What is a successful child? Yeah. Because you can have a lot of money.
Right. So you're saying that, if there's a parent out there that has a child that is 3 years old, is already speaking in tongues.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
And it's already doing differential equations.
Awesome.
But has no love.
That child is going to become a sociopath, narcissist, or maybe even a psychopath. I don't know. I'm just throwing words out there.
There will be a path. Yeah. Social, there's going to be a path on that child.
Yeah. Children are very impressionable in ways that we can't even imagine. Your children are going to talk like you. They're going to walk like you. And not all of it is genetics. It's what they see. They will talk the way you talk.
Yeah. I mean, my son has an American accent, so it's like, look at you.
Yeah.
He's talking like, a keyboard.
Yeah, because he
So
spends
like,
a lot more time than, it's not you talking to him, it's he's watching TV and the iPad, and they talk with that accent, so he picks it up.
Or daycare or stuff
Or
like
daycare,
that. Yeah.
right. But when you talk, when you do the talking, right, you find out that the kids will talk like you. Yeah, because they will mimic what they see.
Right.
Yeah, and if they don't see anything, then something else will fill the
they'll
space.
mimic something.
They'll mimic something else, right? And I don't want us to leave this episode, feeling like we're bashing parents. We're not bashing parents. I just think that we need to be intentional, very intentional, very, very intentional and thoughtful about how we're raising our children. I was at a men's meeting a few weeks ago, and the guys were stuck on the scripture that says a man that does not provide for his family is worse than an infidel. And they had narrowed a father's provision to money.
Just material.
To just material things.
And I'm like, why do we always go down the same? Sorry, go ahead.
Because
it feels like it's always the same thing.
It's there's a logic to it, right? But it's incomplete. Yeah, you should provide for your family materially, but you should also provide for them emotionally. I should also provide for them spiritually, right? A father is the provider, absolutely. I will accept that moniker, right? But it's not just financial. It's not just financial. Children should not feel love only from a mother. They should not feel affection only from a mother. They should not feel validation or affirmation only from a mother. They should also feel it from a father. Yeah? And a mother. It should not be the exclusive preserve of one of the spouses to show love and the other one to show discipline. Yeah? No, they must feel love from the people who they naturally look up to. Validation, affirmation. Yeah? Because if they don't have that, it's a problem. It's a mental problem for them. It's an emotional problem. We're raising emotionally, we were raised and we are in many ways emotionally dysfunctional. Nigeria, and I know a lot of people watching this are not Nigerians, but let me just quickly talk about Nigeria because that's the country I'm most familiar with. If we're going to change Nigeria, when changing our leadership is not going to solve our problem because our leadership comes from amongst us.
So we should have foreign leaders or something.
Is that we have foreign leaders? No. We need leaders who are raised differently. Who are raised differently than the way we raise leaders. We raise children. The problem starts with the way we raise children. We're running around in circles thinking that, if we change the leaders, when you change the leaders, you just bring in another bunch of insecure, low self-esteem people. And we see it all the time. People who are, gung-ho before they enter government. They mean they enter government and they see all the money they can steal. They start to steal it. People who are socially this, socially that, once they see that money, they lose their minds. Do you know why? They were never raised in a way that they could see money and not take it. Because that is where the value is. I was talking about the guy who earns $30,000. He earns $30,000, but he sits over a budget of $250,000. And he does not touch a dime. Why? He's confident in who he is. The money does not define him, so he doesn't have to steal it. He's content. He's happy. He's never been outside Wichita, Kansas. Never been, and he's not interested. We travel the world to go and do what? To go and shop. Shop. Why?
Yeah.
Because that's where the value is. Not in me, but in what I have. And all of us are looking for value. So we want to have more and more and more. Change the way we raise children. You will change our country. If you don't change it.
I was going to say, because we typically close with make a case for
Christ.
And and I was going to say make a case for the people that are one day hoping to be parents. But I feel like you just summarized that in the last 2 or 3 minutes you were speaking.
Right. The Bible says that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I think all of us have to look at that scripture, right? I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and find a sense of value in the amount in the resources that God invested in us. Yeah? When you think about how he sent his son to die for you, I've talked about this before. God's goal in sending Christ is not for us to make heaven. Heaven is a byproduct. His goal is a relationship with us. That's why he made Adam and Eve, right? And put them in the garden. And he always used to hang out with them. Mm-hmm. It was to have a relationship with them. And what Jesus Christ came to do was correct a mistake, correct a wrong that Adam and Eve committed, right? To take us back to God's original intent, which is relationship, right? If you can connect with that, you will see value in yourself. And if you can see value in yourself, you can impart value to your children, right? For me, what set me free was knowing that the creator of the heavens and the earth, the King of kings and the Lord of lords, loved me so much that he would pay a price for me. A price that maybe my society wouldn't pay for me. But he paid that price for me. He sent his son to die for me. I must mean something to him. He wants a relationship with me. I must mean something to him. If I mean something to the King of kings and the Lord of lords, who cares what you think? Doesn't mean anything to me. I don't have to pursue it. I don't. I did nothing to pursue his. Yeah? Remember, while we were still sinners, while I was at my worst, that was when Christ died for me. So if he loved me when I was in the biggest mess, is it now that he will stop loving me? That is where I have found value. And I can then impart value to my children. Yeah? Separate from whatever they achieve, separate from whatever they have.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think that was a really well tied in way to end the episode. I think I'm just encouraged. One thing that you did say that stuck out to me was the intentionality with raising your children. Because, while I don't have kids, like being around people, I can definitely say that I look at people and I'm like, I can tell how you were raised just by the way that you're acting. Like I can tell. I can tell the relationship you have with your parents by the way that you respond to things. And it makes a huge, huge difference in the kind of person that you become. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that you can't be a different person. And I love how you said, like, just one, when you realize what Christ did for you and you start to attach value to yourself because you know he died for you. Even in nothing in your mess, like he valued you that much. Yeah. You are that valuable to him. It then changes your perspective on who you are and what you bring. Yeah. And then the way that you raise your kids. So I guess we're just going to encourage all the parents who are listening, who are trying to raise children in this crazy, crazy world. Or if you are hoping to one day raise children, one, encourage you guys to be intentional about the way that you are parenting your children, but also to have a little bit of empathy for the way that you were raised, and start to find value in Christ and not in outside validation of people while validating your children too.
Yeah, the kids need it. I love what you said, and I want to encourage all the parents. Parenting is tough. I used to think just have the children, they'll be fine. Parenting is hard. It's hard work. You are investing time, resources. You're literally living for your kids, right? I pray for every parent that listens to this, that God will give you the strength, that God will give you the wisdom, that God will give you every resource that you need to be a parent that will raise children in the knowledge and in the nurture of the Lord. Amen. It's not the easiest thing in the world. So we need all the help we can get to do it right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys.
Thanks for listening.
It's been PF Unfiltered.
Oh, one last thing. Sorry, I wanted to shout out to my daddy because I love you, Daddy. Thank you for being the dad that you are. Because
I'm going to shout out to my mommy too.
Because
mommy, I love you.
I can't relate, but
please, mommy, I love you.
Please like,
subscribe,
share.
Yes,
right. If this was a blessing.
Thank you, guys.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
bye, guys.